G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave's Talk Stuff. Why do they avoid accountability? Yeah, we pretty much know why feminists avoid accountability. But it's a frequent trope that comes up in every debate, whether it be dating, politics, relationships, or the common source of debate these days, online discourse, mug thinking. While online spaces often frame it as women avoiding accountability, the truth is feminists are indoctrinated to avoid accountability. So they've taken a human trait that is a defense mechanism for one's psyche or ego that is rooted in immaturity, emotional instability, but it's also rooted in socialization, but ultimately it's all aimed at ego protection. But feminism uses it as a defense tactic.
Every day for the past 30 years, you high-heeled pit bulls have blamed us for everything. From not being able to get into Harvard to not being able to get into stretch pants.
There was a cliche in the 90s, but it was a common thing that, blame the patriarchy. So it became a common trope to blame feminism. But who's right and who's wrong? Let's see, shall we? Before I continue, I'm sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Empire Valves, that's one word, empirevalves.myshopify.com. Support the channel today by buying a coffee mug or a tumbler or a water bottle. With more merch to come. Your one-stop shop for enchanting treasures based on my writing. That's empirevalves, one word, .myshopify.com. empirevalves.myshopify.com. From a psychological and social context, you need to look at human psychology. The distinct cultural framework around radical feminism. That is, blaming everything on men. The matriarchy, patriarchy, dynamic of oppressor, oppression, narratives of the left. They are all rooted in avoiding accountability. The oppressor is the problem. The patriarchy is the problem. The man is the problem. Those are all based on universal, it's not rooted in human psychology, defenses of the ego, which has been twisted to defend radical feminist politics. So you have the ego defense. This is where admitting fault would force the individual to confront the gap between reality and ideology. And the ideology is ingrained into them as their desired self-image. That is powerful, confident, stunning, and brave. So accountability would mean admitting you're not brave, confident, stunning, or brave, or entitled to universal income, or entitled to become a CEO, or entitled to college education, etc. If you confront your ideology, you somehow are the bad guy, and by being the bad guy, it triggers an ego collapse that results in feelings of shame or worthlessness. But ultimately, it happens anyway because they've based their ideology on ego, not on reality. Reality always crashes in on their delusion, which is why then they have to engage in constant gender-based attacks on the patriarchy, etc. So another one is socialization. That is the social group in which radical feminism forms coaches women to always defend their ego, to always go on the attack. That their social structure and in that group inclusion and group dynamics are all based on promoting the ideology. The ideology prioritizes social condition, avoiding conflict or debate, and bases their emotional harmony. That is, I am happy with you as long as you repeat what I tell you. So you have feminists constantly repeating the same thing over and over again rather than confront any flaws or mistakes. So you have a group bias which echoes, and that's what an echo chamber is. It is avoiding accountability. Another one is where social pressure, when radical feminists cannot stand the social pressure, they are in that bad space where they're having to face their flaws. So what do? Well, common tactics: deny, deflect, defend, delusion, diffusion. Okay. Denial. Didn't happen. You're wrong. Deflection. It's your fault. It's the patriarchy. Defense. Those aren't bad ideas. It's just a transitional stage. We must break a few eggs to bake a cake, must we not? So it's that kind of defense. Now, diffusion. Oh, you're just overstating it. Oh, it's not that bad. Delusion. No, you miss it. It's all out of context. You're spinning everything bad in. You're spinning every success into the. Oh, but what about abortion and free healthcare? It's always abortion and free healthcare, right? Oh, you just want to put us back in the work. You want to put a Handmaid's Tale, Delusion. Absolutely delusional answers. You just want to put us all in chains. Yeah, So, what's the impact? People cannot engage in meaningful conversations anymore. Conflicts remain unresolved. Every minor argument turns into a major disaster as the emotional immaturity of the mob takes over. That they move from the self to group dynamics. And in group dynamics, they lean on each other, so they must echo each other in order to maintain social cohesion. So instead of sincere apologies or changes in behaviour or fixing problems, they now engage in group denial, group deflection. They're constantly defending themselves, saying that, we did nothing wrong, we're only trying to create a better world. You constantly get the same answers over and over and over again. They cannot face facts. Everything has to be the named oppressor at fault. Anything else leads them to the group dynamics, that is the socialization dynamics of the group, expelling them from the group. Because once a feminist admits fault or failure, they put the entire ideology at risk. Because we now can point to something and say, here we are, and we've seen this with Thomas Sowell debating against Clinton era Hillary Clinton or the Clinton-esque clone on welfare, in which she couldn't defend her welfare state of LBJ and the failures of that system, which elevated Thomas Sowell, which failed, which again, miserable failures for some of the post-Clinton era acolytes to get meaningful political careers, because it was all a system of failure. Same with a lot of LBJ clingers. Where are they now? Where were they back then? Not many carried through. I'm saying it's the same with feminism. Not many carry through the generations, do they? Most of them fail. You have the same few names over and over again. And Jane Fonda, she goes to an anti-oil protest in a limousine. Yeah. She flies to the Green Conference in a private jet. She tells you that there's too many children in the world. She has how many grandchildren again? Some say 14, some say 4. There's many stories about her. But, for a feminist who's anti-marriage, sure had a lot of marriages. And for an anti-capitalist, she sure makes a lot of money. Although she's, I'm just spreading the message. I'm just the messenger. So, again, deflection, avoiding accountability. They aren't who they say they are. It's all a performance. It's all clout chasing. Bully tactics, whatever you want to call it. Crybabies, cry bullies. It's all deflection, distractions from their true selves, who they don't know because they're lost in ideology. I'm talking about radical feminism, and of which so many women have walked away from, but it's the politicians who cling to it the most, and the voters in mass still tend to favour the politician that promises them utopia and then engages in, you didn't bring eggs down. The next day, you didn't bring eggs down. Cost of fuel is up again. Always something. Never their own. Never, one day after losing the election, somehow everything's supposed to change, right? And then they say, it didn't change, therefore you lost. We won. All these childish tactics. It's basically, most social media is people engaging in protecting their ego rather than meaningful discussions. Accountability, they then will never accept that. They will never accept responsibility for all the damage they've done. They'll always find something else to blame, but you cannot fundamentally claim, right, that the rise in smoking was linked to cancer, and then turn around and say, but the rise in migration has not led to an increase in crime, even though it has, or the rise in single mothers has led to a rise in crime, and they say, I thought it was immigration. And then, you are anti-immigration, are you? So you're racist, xenophobe, etc. Whereas every country that these people come from do not allow mass migration, except South Africa, and that's only if you're black. Heck, even the Middle East won't take migrants from other Middle Eastern countries. So, and in fact, some countries they label as security risks, like Iran, Gaza. So, feminists in the West won't accept responsibility for the rape crisis, the rising crime, but that's linked to all their policies. Yet they can claim the rise in smoking led to the rise in cancer, when in fact it was over a dozen individual different things. Just like the rise in crime is not poverty. It's no one thing. But poverty is not to blame. More people are out of poverty. Even the poorest person in America lives a better life now than they did 20 years ago. There are more services. Most of it is choice. And the problem is, even the most radical of radicals will not face facts that drug users, they don't want to face it, right? They don't want, right, drug users or the mentally ill to be first in the institutions and all has to be voluntary, but they can't make voluntary choices. So drugs, crime, etc. will never be addressed because they want to get rid of prisons. Because somehow, if we make everything voluntary, people will choose. Will naturally choose. They keep claiming that, right? History tells us different. The human race does not naturally choose good. They naturally choose what is most convenient, the shortest route to getting what they want. That is the survival instinct. That is a fact that cannot be changed. The humans are not fundamentally neither good nor evil. They are fundamentally selfish. Just like every other species on the planet. Almost. We still don't know what those bacteria are up to, do we now? The scientists keep spying them on the microscopes and they just sit there going, you spying on me again? So, I don't want to make generalizations, but generally, people only choose good because it is the most convenient for their survival. And if you take away the threat of consequence, you're basically taking away accountability. So why do people avoid accountability? To feel good. But that's a drug. That's all it is. Empire Valves. That's one word. EmpireValves.myshopify.com. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel and support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, or in my profile. I appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.